Hi, this is Margaret Floyd Barry, founder and owner of the Eat Naked Kitchen. And today I wanted to talk about a really important concept when it comes to healing from autoimmune disease. And that is understanding the role of digestion and our gut health in addressing and reversing autoimmunity. So first off, let's talk about what autoimmunity is, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So our immune system at the most basic level has two essential roles. The first role is to protect us from pathogenic invaders like parasites and viruses and bacteria. And the second role is internal housekeeping. And as part of both of these main jobs is this incredible ability to differentiate. And it differentiates on two levels. It differentiates between self and other. And then when it comes to other, it differentiates between friend and foe. And this ability to differentiate is so critically important so that it's not misfiring and actually attacking self rather than attacking enemy foe, right? Or enemy other, I should say. So what happens in autoimmunity is essentially this distinction process goes awry and the immune system does misfire. It starts to mistake self-tissue, self, as this enemy other that it needs to protect itself from. And so it launches an immune attack on our own body. And the definition of the disease is going to be what body tissue or what body system the immune system is attacking. So in the case of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it's the thyroid. In the case of psoriasis, it's the skin. In the case of colitis, it's the digestive tract. So the nature of the actual disease is really defined by what body tissue the immune system is attacking. But the root cause is this malfunction of the immune system. Now, in the functional world, our approach to addressing autoimmunity is to figure out why the immune system is making these poor decisions, essentially. Why is it not identifying self as the thing it needs to protect and instead attacking it? And an analogy I like to use is just like any of us, the immune system can get fatigued and make essentially bad decisions. Now, of course, there's a lot of very complex mechanisms that underlie this, but think about it. When you're tired and you're working all the time and you're never given a break, you start to make bad decisions, right? And essentially, sort of as a core principle, this is what's happening with the immune system when it is misfiring and attacking self rather than protecting self. And so the work is to identify, well, what is engaging this immune system such that it's being essentially fatigued and making these poor decisions. Now, again, this is an oversimplification, but I think it really helps to understand sort of the core of what we're trying to do here. Now, that's autoimmunity. Now let's talk about digestion and why is digestion and gut health so critically important when it comes to reversing the autoimmune process. And I would posit that it's important to look at and heal the digestive system even in the absence of overt digestive symptoms. Now, a lot of people who struggle with autoimmune disease do experience a lot of digestive symptoms alongside that, but some people don't have any digestive symptoms. And that doesn't actually mean that we don't need to start there. And here's why. So what is the digestive system? It is the most profound moment, I think, in human physiology. I just love the digestive tract. I could talk about this all day long. So basically the digestive system, it is this tube, right? Big long tube, starts at your mouth, ends at the anus. And essentially this tube, even though it sort of physically resides within us, it is actually still the outside of the body in a lot of different ways. So I like to think of this as, we are essentially as humans, very, very complicated donuts. And the donut hole is this digestive tract. And along the way, there's valves that are keeping things kind of going in the appropriate direction. And we're chemically breaking down the food we eat. We We are manually breaking it down mechanically through our chewing and through the churning in our stomach. And what's happening is that the food that we're consuming and breaking down literally gets absorbed into us. There's that trite saying of, oh, you are what you eat. But it's like, no, really, you are what you eat. You are essentially walking food. I love that quote. I learned that from Joshua Rosenthal way back in the day. I absolutely love it. We are walking food. If you look at your hand, every cell in that hand, the skin, the nails, the muscles, the bones, the tendons, the ligaments, every bit of that was once food. Everything that fuels us, that repairs us, that drives every single chemical process in our body is derived originally and influenced in some way by the food that we eat. And it's not just what we eat, but it's our body's ability to harvest those nutrients from whatever it was that we ate for lunch or for dinner and actually absorb them appropriately into our system. And the place where this happens is the digestive tract. Now, there's a really key place in the digestive tract, this kind of moment where something from the outside literally becomes us. And that is primarily in the small intestine. So the small intestine is a really big, long tube. It's all kind of folded up. You know it from your anatomy diagrams back in like history, biology class. And inside of that tube, the food that is moving through that, this is the primary place where we actually absorb the nutrients from our food. And the lining of that intestinal wall is 1 cell thick. Think about that. That is like thinnest, 1 cell thick. And it's comprised of these little cells that sort of line up next to each other. We call these the tight junctions, okay? And the way that it works is with each of these tight junctions, what happens is they selectively kind of open and close to allow a nutrient to pass straight through from the intestines, which is, remember, still the outside of your body, into your blood. This directly goes into your blood, and this then gets kind of shuttled around the body to do whatever it needs to do. Now, this process needs to be really selective, right? And this is this moment where it's just, there's all sorts of different mechanisms to ensure that these tight junctions are opening and closing only to allow what should get in to get in. And there's other mechanisms actually kind of travels through the cells. We won't need to get into all of the complexities of that, but essentially, this is this moment where the outside world is becoming you. And we need to take incredible care of that. Now, what does any of this have to do with the immune system? Well, it turns out that the vast majority of our immune system lives in and around the digestive tract. I've heard statistics anywhere from 70 to 90% of the immune system lives in and around the digestive tract. Let's call it 80% just to find the average there. All to say, most of it lives there. And so what this means is that if anything is going awry in that process of absorbing those nutrients of anywhere along the digestive process, whether it's how you're chewing your food, or if there's some kind of dysfunction in your stomach, you're not secreting enough enzymes or hydrochloric acid to be able to protect you from foodborne pathogens. If there's a dysbiotic environment, so your beneficial bacteria and the more opportunistic and pathogenic bacteria are out of balance in your gut. If there's an overt infection, if there is anything compromising the integrity of that delicate lining of the intestines, any of these things will seriously impact the immune system, because that's where it lives, right on that edge. And it's there for a reason. That's one of our first key, we talk about barriers in the immune system. That's one of the key barriers, is that intestinal lining. It's protecting us from the outside world. So let's just give one example. Let's say that intestinal barrier gets compromised, and now we've got some like loosey-goosey junctions. And this means they're not opening and closing selectively, right? It means that anything can get in. And that anything could be just an improperly digested piece of broccoli, right? Sounds fairly innocuous, but if it's not at the proper stage of digestion, your body doesn't recognize it, and it's going to deal with it as definitely as debris that it needs to get rid of. And at worst is actually an invader, and it's going to like launch a full-on immune attack and tag that broccoli as something it needs to pay attention to down the road, so that if you eat broccoli later on, it's like, oh, we know what you are. You're an invader. We're going to bring out the forces and get rid of you. So, or it could be toxins. It could be pathogens that were bound for the toilet bowl, because remember what's in there, it's everything. And you don't necessarily want to be absorbing just willy-nilly everything that is in your small intestines. You only want to be allowing into your bloodstream the beneficial things. You want to be letting in those key nutrients. You don't want to be letting in any kind of pathogens, any kind of toxins that are destined ultimately for the toilet bowl. So this is a really, really key concept. And the reason why we always start with healing the digestive tract when we are dealing with any kind of autoimmunity, regardless of whether there are symptoms. And you might say, well, if there's no symptoms, there's nothing going wrong. Well, we use a lot of testing. And here's the thing. Oftentimes, even in somebody who has no symptoms, when we do some gut testing, and we also always work with a very specific type of food sensitivity test alongside that gut testing. And what that food sensitivity test will tell us is, are there any foods that right now are triggering an inflammatory process in your body? And when we're triggering inflammation, that's engaging the immune system, right? So we do these two tests, and almost always, in fact, I hesitate to say never, because as soon as I say never, I'm going to find that one example where it's not the case. But really, in the history of our practice, we have not seen a case where somebody with zero digestive symptoms comes back with a truly clean gut test. Almost always, there's some degree of dysfunction. And while it's not necessarily the case that addressing this dysfunction is going to be a home run in terms of reversing that autoimmunity, sometimes it is. You know, there have been many cases in our practice when we haven't even gotten to the point of actually sort of any deeper digging beyond this initial phase of doing the digestive healing, identifying and removing those inflammatory foods, and thus removing a significant burden on that immune system. When we remove that burden, think about it with our digestive process. You know, most of us are eating multiple times a day, and so if there's any kind of dysfunction there, what that can mean is that multiple times a day, you're engaging and triggering that immune system, which can then over time ultimately build up and lead to the development of some autoimmune processes in the body. Now, there's a lot of mechanisms that go into this. There's a lot of different ways that the digestive system, much more specifically and in more granular detail, if you're interested, I'm happy to go into some of these, but this gives you the broad picture of what's happening and why healing the digestive system is so critically important with any kind of autoimmune disease process. And I'd argue for any disease process, even if it doesn't have anything to do with autoimmune. Because as I said at the beginning, we are what you eat, but really it's you are what you can digest of what you eat. And this is not a small deal, because you're walking food. And so we got to make sure that not only the quality of what you're eating is right up to snuff, but that your body's able to harvest those key nutrients from the diet and make the best use of it. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any questions, please just pop it in the comments below. We'll be happy to answer. And wishing you all the joy and health and happiness. Take good care.